Inappropriately located new development can have unsustainable consequences. I started my submission against this application last time with these words, and I reiterate them again. This direct quote from the South Northamptonshire Local Plan Part 2 must be at the forefront of the Inspectorate's mind when considering this appeal. I speak for literally thousands of residents when I express my opposition to this development due to the breaches of policy and objectives. The reasons for refusal are correct and should be upheld. Towcester, or Lactodorum, is, as the local plan states, the oldest town in Northamptonshire. Policy SS2A and B states that planning permission can only be granted where the proposed development maintains the individual identity of towns and integrates with its local surroundings. Indeed, when describing AL1 and AL2, the Supplementary Planning Document, SPD, states, I quote, "This northern gateway acts as a key arrival point into the historic settlement, and its function should be considered relative to the quality of proposals at AL1 and AL2, as well as scale and massing." End of quote. The visual impact of such a development is deeply concerning. The SPD states, in regard to AL1, that, quote, "There is a need for greater sensitivity in developing areas along the north and northeastern edges of this site due to the rising topography and rural character of the land, making this part of the site sensitive to receptors from the north, east and west, across the countryside from several public rights of way, country roads and villages." End of quote. Now, the units here would essentially reach around 28 metres above the existing ground level, quite significantly taller than the SPD's suggested top height of 16 metres from existing ground level. Combine this with the 24-hour lighting across the whole site, and the development is extremely visible. That extensive large bunds have to be installed to mask the ground level changes for the appeal scheme and to increase the height of tree planting just reinforces that this is not an appropriate development. The loss of agricultural fields and mature vegetation to a large warehouse, hard surfaces and associated activity, i.e. being served by a consistent 24-hour flow of bright yellow vans and lorries, clearly shows that this application fails to demonstrate compatibility or integration with our most historic town and this area of fields and beauty. In addition, how a warehouse delivery unit placed there can conserve the tranquility of the natural and built environment that Objective 9 seeks to achieve cannot be answered. Now, on warehousing, this type of B8 warehousing is not in keeping with the spirit of the local plan and SPD, nor with the existing Bell Plantation. This proposal is not the type of small and medium-sized commercial building the local plan intended. Now, DHL argue that there is a need for strategic warehousing and that WNC have failed to deliver this since the Local Plan Part 2 was adopted. But might I gently suggest to DHL that perhaps this may indeed be a recognition that additional warehousing of the size, scale and siting is not deemed strategic in this location, given the abundance of warehousing across Northamptonshire and in other more appropriate sites, which are also currently sitting vacant. I do not believe that there is a need for a large floor plate B8 development. Now, on employment, paragraph 13.2.1 of the local plan states that there is no specific identified need for the additional employment to meet the needs of the town. Objectives 1 and 2 of the local plan relate to job creation. However, a large-scale set of warehousing does not create the type of jobs required, given the plan identifies the resident workforce is highly skilled and professional. DHL, in their appeal, try to suggest significant economic benefits and argue it would create around 1,200 to 1,500 full-time equivalent jobs for South Northamptonshire residents. However, let us be clear, the majority of roles in such a warehouse would be process, plant and machinery operatives, which sits in contrast to the localised workforce skill set. It will not service the potential local workforce of South Northamptonshire, but will require workers being transported in. The jobs on offer as noted in paragraph 13.1.4 of the Local Plan Part 2, will not match the skills of the local people. This isn't the employment ambrosia they suggest. Now, the West Northamptonshire Joint Course Strategy, JCS, emphasises that this is to be a rural service centre with the intent to grow local businesses relating to home working environment and being part of a high technology corridor. The focus needs to be on renewal and regeneration of existing employment areas. Now, the nature of the DHL warehouse application is not the small-scale units and is more akin to the nature of a warehouse in a logistics park or rail-linked allocation, and so conflicts with the intentions of the employment policies in the development plan. Now, turning to traffic, it is incredibly important that we put this DHL application in its wider context. There is an undeniable background growth of traffic across this area, and National Highways has acknowledged to me that even without this development, congestion in Towcester will worsen in the years to come. This will only be exacerbated by this development. Now, DHL suggests that they will deliver a substantial highway improvement scheme that will fully mitigate, I quote, the traffic impact of the proposed development. But how can they guarantee this? Some of my concerns. Firstly, DHL's modelling looks at their 2025 and 2031 years. The base of their modelling was data from the COVID 2021 period when traffic was naturally down. Secondly, the workforce here are unlikely to be truly South Northamptonshire or even Towcester locals, and so walking, cycling or using public transport is unlikely to be the case for the majority of future employees. And finally, given the work patterns likely at the site being shift work, not all workers will be able to use public transport, even if enhanced, which will encourage car use and thus further exacerbate existing traffic congestion. Ultimately, the already congested Tove roundabout will see excess traffic being forced along not only the Towcester Relief Road, but also throughout the surrounding villages. We must think of the detrimental effect on Greens Norton, Tiffield, Dunkirk, Caldicot, Grimscote, Pattershall, Coldheim and Ascot, to name but a few. We have to consider the cumulative impact of these decisions and its legacy for our community. Now, on the playground, or perhaps the recreational land, I would just also note that DHL are trying to justify this development by promoting a socio-economic benefit, being the offer of land for football pitches delivered by Towcester Town Football Club. Now, however well-intentioned these pitches may be, I do have severe concerns for the safety of children trying to access this site. They're going to have to walk from the other side of town and cross the incredibly busy A43 and walk alongside thundering lorries. Overall, for the reasons I have stated before, combined with the evidence provided in this appeal, I firmly believe that this development neither meets the demands for small and medium-sized units nor contributes to reducing the level of outcommute, both of which are central to the local plan. This planning application fails to satisfy policy grounds set out in the local plan and SPD on visual impact, employment, traffic and compatibility with the identity of the area. The reasons for refusal are supported and withstand scrutiny. DHL, quite frankly, entered into a bad commercial deal. They acquired a freehold to a site without it being conditional on planning and are trying to force through an inappropriate development. I would urge the Inspectorate to listen to the voices of concern, as well as the emphatic refusal by the Strategic Planning Committee, and reject this appeal. The DHL warehouse development is not justified to be located at Towcester. Thank you.